The body positivity movement was always doomed to fail. It seems like every few months something new happens that exposes the toxic truth about what this group really stands for. The truth is that the body positivity movement is really not all that positive. It could be, but it's not. Instead, it's negative, hypocritical, delusional, mean-spirited, and exclusionary. The most recent scandal being focused on Lizzo, an icon of the body positivity movement. As you may know, Lizzo's being sued, and it's come out that, among other things, she was allegedly fat-shaming her dance troupe known as the Big Girls behind the scenes. This video isn't about the lawsuit, but the whole Lizzo thing got me thinking, can the body positivity movement do anything non-problematically? Why is hypocrisy the norm for these guys? They're a group that's done next to everything wrong. So today we're discussing why the body positivity movement was always doomed to fail, starting with their message of inclusivity. But before we get into it, a message from today's sponsor, FlexiSpot. A standing desk is an important part of my desk setup, and I was so excited to get my FlexiSpot in the mail. I got the Komar white desk with the glass top, and I really love it. The build quality is excellent. It is extremely sturdy. Look at this stability. The water barely moves when the desk moves up and down. The Komar desk looks amazing. I love the drawer that it has here. I haven't had a desk with a drawer in a long time, and this one is sleek. It's the perfect size to store my laptop or random papers. But it doesn't just look good. This desk is a beast with a 220-pound weight capacity. It was crazy easy to put together. It only took 15 minutes from start to finish. I cannot recommend a standing desk enough when my energy levels are low. Sometimes standing up is all it takes to get me back in the zone. I also love being able to adjust the height of the desk for a more comfortable posture during long work days. Combined with the FlexiSpot C7 ergonomic office chair, I can really fine-tune my sitting position for optimal comfort. If you've been considering getting a standing desk, FlexiSpot has a great deal for you. FlexiSpot is having their Labor Day sale offering 50% off. But wait, there's more. Get an additional $30 off select items on orders over $300 using my code Kiana. Click the link in the description below and get your desk from FlexiSpot today. Get 50% off with their Labor Day sale and an extra $30 off with my code Kiana. Thanks to FlexiSpot for sponsoring today's video. And back to the video. If you ask a public member of the body positivity movement what they think the biggest issue with the group is, they'll likely give you some variation of the following phrase. Let's use Lizzo for an example. You look at the hashtag body positive and you see smaller framed girls, curvier girls, lot of white girls. And I feel no ways about that because inclusivity is what my message is always about. Ah yes, a message of inclusivity minus you, and you.
Now that body positivity has been co-opted by all bodies and people are finally celebrating medium and small girls and people who occasionally get roles, fat people are still getting the short end of this movement. No one cares anymore because it's like body positivity is for everybody.
According to the loudest voices in body positivity is essentially being ruined by people with all different body types participating in it. And you might be thinking, well, wait, isn't that kind of like the point of the whole thing? And yeah, the Wikipedia definition of the group is this. The body positive movement is a social movement focused on the acceptance of all bodies, regardless of size, shape, skin tone, gender, and physical abilities, while challenging present-day beauty standards as an undesirable social construct. So on Wikipedia and so many other places online, you'll read that the purpose of the body positivity movement is to embrace bodies of all different shapes and sizes. And that's true, minus just a few key exceptions. Starting with thin bodies, size 0 to 8, also known as straight size. Back off, thin people. Here's why body positivity wasn't made for you. All thin people are supposed to be thankful that they have thin privilege, so their body image concerns are less valid and therefore they're not really worthy of participating in body positivity. Body positivity is not about boosting the confidence of people with conventionally attractive and acceptable figures. The world already does that for them. It's kind of dumb to even have to say out loud that you can't tell if someone has body image issues or the severity of those issues based on the size of their body. Not to mention, size 0 to 8 is a huge range of bodies and shapes and life experiences, and to just lump them all together and say they're all thin and that's it, let's forget about them, is crazy. As if not being overweight is the only body image metric that matters when we're talking about the effects of unobtainable beauty standards. But anyway, who's next? Mid-sized bodies, which I believe is between sizes 10 to 14, depending on who you ask. Now, surely body positivity must be for these people. This sort of average body type is clearly underrepresented in the beauty standard and was pretty much called fat by the mass media up until very, very recently.
So the whole mid-size body positivity movement thing has been kind of rubbing me the wrong way. The whole thing reeks to me of internalized fat phobia.
But no, body positivity is definitely not for mid-sized people either. Mid-sized people are at best forgotten about by body positivity and at worst loathed for perpetuating fat phobia. The issue seems to be that the body positivity group thinks that this term shouldn't exist because sizes 10 to 14 are straight-sized and therefore just also thin people.
There's absolutely no reason for mid-size to be its own fragment of the body positive movement.
Mid-size isn't real, and I regret ever talking about it. Skinny people are just skinny and desperate to be oppressed. So where does that leave them then? The mid-size people just end up being excluded on both ends. They say that they wouldn't call themselves skinny, but they're not plus size either. And therefore they can't really relate or find clothing inspiration through either group. But according to body positivity, it's unnecessary and harmful for them to just try and create their own label, even though the purpose is to give another group representation for their body type, which I thought was the point of body positivity. Next up, men.
Warning, 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 warning.
Men need not apply, okay? Body positivity is definitely not for you. I repeat, body positivity is not for you. If you're a white guy thinking you should just embrace your belly fat and jump on the dad positivity bandwagon, this article is for you. You need to understand that you are not the target audience for body positivity. All right, moving on. What about people with scars, burns, visible deformities? Surely they could benefit from the body positivity movement's goals. Now, the body positivity movement does claim that these guys are welcome. But in reality, where are they? They're mostly just forgotten about. They are definitely not a main focus and they enjoy very little visibility within the group. And if you're thin and you have one of those things, well, are you really living in a marginalized body? You may just need to check your privilege. Okay, finally, we've reached plus size people, size 16 to 26 plus. But how plus size are we talking? Because some of you might just be quote unquote crowding the conversation. Here's a perfect example of what I mean. This creator says she's 220 pounds and is size 16, and she posted a video happily dancing with her stomach out.
Have my tummy out. This isn't the worst video, not the most harmful, but it is worth calling out. The problem is hashtagging posts like this with body positivity really waters down a movement that was meant for actually really marginalized bodies. It is nothing close to someone who has compounding marginalized identities.
So you have to be really fat.
So this girl, who's a size 16, she's plus size, she's over 200 pounds, she's being told that her actions are harmful to this movement. Nothing is ever good enough for the loudest voices and body positivity. And it's funny because I look through the rest of this girl's content and it's weird because this is the kind of thing that pops in my mind when I think of what body positivity should really be. The vibe is positive. She's clearly confident in her body and she's just trying to spread that message to other young women. Can we imagine if this is what the body positivity movement was just allowed to be? But instead, this young girl is being told that what she's doing is harmful to the movement and therefore not real body positivity, but the girl creating the video thinks that what she's doing is more positive. I just can't. Like, the vibe here is awful. It's a message of inclusivity that's not for thin women, average sized women, definitely not for men, perfunctorily for people with disabilities, only sometimes for small fats, and therefore mostly just for obese women on the furthest ends of the quote unquote fatness spectrum, creating an ironically impossible standard in a movement that's supposed to be about dismantling impossible standards. It's supposed to embody positivity, acceptance, and inclusivity, while in reality thriving on negativity, exclusion, gatekeeping, and cattiness. And this is why it's always been doomed to fail. The movement's bad attitude is one of the main reasons, if not the main reason, that it's begun to spiral into irrelevance. The movement at its peak was reaching millions of people, but the loudest voices ultimately pushed everyone away. I think the term body positivity immediately resonates with so many people because we've just come off some of the harshest body image decades of all time. Almost everyone struggles with body image issues, making the body positivity movement a breath of fresh air on the surface. And I think it had such potential for good, but it was squandered. And it's sad because one of the best things that's come from this movement is that more people without the classic model body shape than ever before are more confident than ever. This is obviously very anecdotal, but I see more body types than ever wearing a greater range of clothing, crop tops, skirts, whatever, than ever before in history. And that is an indication that some people are feeling more confident and outgoing regardless of what their body size looks like. I think being able to see a whole range of different body types in media and online just kind of doing their thing and more confident, I think that has had a positive effect on people. And that's literally the work of the body positivity movement. It's such a positive thing, but they don't see it that way. To the real body positivity members, this all just represents the violent co-optation of the body positivity movement. This paper is a wild ride, and if you still think that body positivity's message is one of inclusivity and acceptance, this should set you straight. The body positivity movement has been taken from a disadvantaged or marginalized group. Thin people have taken the language of body positivity to advocate for themselves, using it for their own purposes. I mean, I know I read it that way, but you can literally feel the rage emanating off the page. I hate this positioning of like thin people as an enemy. They're just people that are not overweight. I can guarantee you are thinking more about them than they are about you. They're just trying to navigate the world the same way you are. And if someone posts a picture who's not morbidly obese and hashtags body positivity, it's probably because they've dealt with some sort of body image issues in their lives. I'm sure there's some people who are fishing for compliments, but it's not the norm. If the way someone else relates to their own body triggers you, that is a solid signal that you need to work on something with you. That is what that trigger means. And why are body positivity activists angry that their movement is so successful? You named your movement something that resonated with people all over the world. How horrible. If you didn't want people to participate who were not obese, you should have named your movement something more specific. And the thing is, the body positivity group has other movements that have similar goals, such as fat acceptance or fat liberation, whatever you want to call it. And these groups are nowhere near as successful because they don't appeal to everyone, and therefore they just don't catch on, partially because it just doesn't have that same broad appeal. So you can see how all the body sizes that participated but didn't really belong and that they're mad about actually helped to push body positivity along. They got your message in front of more people than you would have done yourselves, clearly. But the entitled body positivity people are instead angry about this. So at this point, I hope I've established that as per the body positivity authorities, body positivity is not for most people, and we are all supposed to back off. Therefore, who's left? Well, only people who are extremely overweight, people who are dangerously overweight. And this is its own problem. Some of this group's messaging becomes very twisted and dark when you realize that it's meant for people who are size 26 and 500 pounds. Example, eating is self-care. Okay, for lots of people it is, depending on how and why and what, but is eating self-care when you're using it to self-destruct? You can't just say eating is self-care across the board. Something I used to think about when I used to binge eat would be like, why would an organism do this to itself? I'm pretty much in pain. I'm so full I can't move. I'm gonna wake up tomorrow feeling like I have a sort of hangover. It's anti-survival. If I was a creature in the woods, okay, I'd be vulnerable to attack for like a whole day. Eating can very easily be the opposite of self-care, so honestly, I find this message creepy. It's a little twisted, isn't it? To tell people who have a serious food addiction and who are in danger due to their body size to eat more, and that their only real problem is society's opinion of this. If someone is 500 pounds and they're sick and they're unhealthy and their friends are saying, no, everything you're doing is okay, please continue what you're doing, those are terrible friends. In this group, as we've already discussed many times, intentional weight loss is not body positive, no matter what, even if you have a health scare. A New York Times article claimed that The core argument of the body positivity movement is that intentional weight loss doesn't work, and in fact causes more harm than good. Again, an extremely creepy core argument to have when you recognize that it's aimed at people who are already in danger because of their weight. And this mentality goes so far that health is considered a bad word within the group. If health is a bad word in your group, that is a great sign that your group might be toxic. And that is why people call this a death cult. Well, that and the actual deaths that have occurred in this group, which I'm not going to get into because I feel bad about them and I don't want to bring them up, but they exist and it's tragic. It's the whole crabs in a bucket mentality. Also, do you know what the term crabs in a bucket actually refers to? I didn't know, but I got the urge to use the phrase for this, so I looked it up on ChatGPT, and this is what I had to say for what it is. Very dark, but very fitting. The phrase crabs in a bucket, sometimes referred to as the crab bucket syndrome or crab mentality, refers to a behavior observed in crabs when they're placed in a bucket or confined space. If one crab attempts to climb out and escape, the other crabs will pull it back down, preventing its escape. Instead of allowing one crab to climb out, ensuring its own survival, the collective group's actions ensure that none of the crabs escape. Is that not the perfect metaphor for this group? These people decided that they can't change, that they're oppressed, and that the best thing they can do in this scenario is band together and hold each other down with toxic positivity and mental gymnastics. And this is another reason this movement was always doomed to fail. Most reasonable people are not in support of people actively harming themselves and others. When all intentional weight loss is not body positive and instead fat phobic, even if it's for someone's health, that is a serious problem. Being an obese woman is an undeniably difficult place to be in society. In movies and stuff like "no fat chicks," that phrase and whatever cruel comments surrounded it, that was like a common sentiment, and as someone who's experienced it, it kind of makes you feel like a subhuman. And I'm so glad that our culture doesn't feel as comfortable publicly sharing those types of sentiment these days, because it is extremely up and cruel. I often wonder if obesity is the hardest behavior to change, because it's not just one behavior, it's this huge web of behaviors that all have to not end cold turkey, but shift massively and shift forever. And realistically, not everyone is going to do that. And I believe wholeheartedly, especially now with the Tammy example, that everyone can do it, but I don't believe that everyone will do it. So I really sympathize with those who feel stuck and have therefore been sort of vulnerable to the message of body positivity. They offer a sort of comforting alternate reality where you can't change and it's not your fault at all and society's just mean, but this is not it. And the problem is, think about how cults choose their victims. They look for people who feel like outsiders, who have emotional or psychological vulnerabilities, and then they offer them a new set of ideas that will save them. Is that not exactly what's happening here? Here's a really mild example. It's not the most extreme case, but it's a good example of what happens when you accidentally fall into the world of body positivity. Did I say it's from R Lose It? Because that was part of it. So I took the Hayes intuitive eating path, and I'm the heaviest I've ever been. I drank the 95% failure rate, diets don't work Kool-Aid. And because of what people were saying on social media, I became too scared to be seen as fat phobic by promoting diet culture and trying to make a change. But it all resulted in today, which I consider my low point, where I stepped on the scale and read 250 pounds. None of my clothes fit, and I feel terrible. I don't want to trash intuitive eating for people who may have found it to be helpful and positive, but I've come to the point where I realize for myself that I need limits and tools to be aware of my habits in eating. And that's okay. I don't like how my body looks or feels. I want my clothes to fit again. I want to live a long, healthy life, being as little of a burden as possible on my family as I get old. And that is okay. And that's just one very mild example of someone who entered body positivity one way and came out unhealthier than ever before. Who really knows how many times this exact same story, or worse, has played out? So body positivity activists can say they're not promoting obesity all they want, but the true body positivity activists are making people more obese and more unhealthy, and therefore they're promoting obesity. Finally, I wanted to mention another thing that I feel like they kind of failed at. And that's the promotion of the better treatment of overweight and obese people in society. As we've already discussed, they've had some success as a group, and I think the movement existing has a lot to do with more body types being represented in the media than ever before, and that's a great thing. So there are wins here, and I don't want to take that away from them, even if they wouldn't consider it no win. But the whole toxic side, the whole trying to convince the world that every level of obesity is totally healthy, and the delusional stuff like no one can lose weight, and there's no such thing as overeating, and you guys are ruining body positivity by participating in it. All that toxic stuff, in my opinion, is bringing drama to the door of overweight and obese people who didn't ask to be a part of it. Who are overweight or obese but know that it's unhealthy, and they're just trying to live their lives, and they're like, look, okay, I'm overweight, but I'm not one of these guys. Please don't lump me in with one of these guys. There's this picture that always messes me up of this British man who went to a concert and was mercilessly ridiculed for his weight by some young men. It literally never fails to bring tears to my eyes. I can't believe it. In the before picture, you can see he's like mid-dancing, and in the after picture, he's just like, he's completely dejected. It is so sad. I hate this picture so much. It's just so heartbreaking to think that this guy's entire night was ruined for no reason other than he was overweight and stood beside the wrong assholes. It just makes me so sad. It makes me angry. Like, I just can't. But by the way, if you don't know that story, it did have a happy ending. It ended up going viral, and that man, Sean O'Brien, was like flown to Hollywood for like a party thrown in his honor. But anyway, that type of thing happens to overweight people a lot. I have a million stories of stuff like that happening to me growing up, and so does literally every other overweight person I have ever met. People are not exaggerating when they say, if you're fat, you get bullied hard. And I want to clarify that I'm not saying that the Sean O'Brien thing happened because of body positivity. I'm getting to the point, okay? But what I am saying is just look at the comments under any overweight person's TikTok or Instagram or whatever. Yes, everybody gets bullied. Yes, everybody gets rude comments because of their weight, but I think it's pretty fair to say that overweight people get a lot of them. They deal with a lot of hate just for being big and online, and quite a lot more than just the average person. And the movement claims that their #1 goal is to change attitudes about weight so that this doesn't happen anymore. But have they been successful at that? In my opinion, they've been the exact opposite. Thanks to the toxicity of the movement and magazines like Cosmo putting tests on the front and saying this is super healthy and fit, there's now public debate on whether it is or isn't okay to be obese. The great body acceptance debate, a battle over the perils of obesity, is playing out in pop culture and the medical community. It's not fine to be fat. Celebrating obesity is irresponsible. Having Tess Holliday on the front of Cosmo magazine, then saying she's super fit and 300 pounds, or this is healthy, causes rightful backlash because we all know it ain't true. And this entire section is just my opinion, but there's no way this is not causing at least a little bit of trouble for just normal overweight people minding their own business. Most overweight or obese people, they know that it's unhealthy. They are not delusional about the state. It's just this very loud minority that's now causing trouble for everybody else. Would anyone have even heard of the term glorifying obesity if it wasn't for the body positivity movement? I don't think people were being accused of that before this movement started spreading their word. I often think to myself that I'm glad that I don't have to justify or clarify to anyone when I go somewhere that I'm not part of that group. I literally think I'm glad about that. So it's just my opinion, but I would bet money that it's making things a little bit worse, that it's causing awkward interactions in public or online that wouldn't exist if the body positivity movement wasn't pushing their nasty, toxic, delusional messages. And the sad thing is, if they just stuck to messages such as be respectful of people's different body sizes regardless of health, versus agree that this is healthy, they would have been so much more successful at advancing this goal. I stumbled upon this chart that claims that based on the terms being associated with the movement, that body positivity is now considered to be extremely toxic, and body neutrality is coming through. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. And if you like this video, you'll definitely like this video. So stupid. Check out FlexiSpot's Labor Day sale. Click the link in the description below and get a standing desk today.